Joe Biden's been hiding for about 2 weeks now. He popped back up to sign in a bill saying we're going to spend almost $1 trillion to help inflation. Obviously, that makes no sense, but that's the bill that he signed. Then he disappeared again, and then he just popped back up to a rally. I don't know if everyone saw the rally. It's interesting because in this rally he condemned half the country because they disagree with him. So he is a leftist, he is a liberal who was promoted and campaigned on as a centrist. He's not. All of the policies that he's implemented and everything that he's said since becoming president proves it. But he went in on the right. He says he likes conservatives or Republicans, centrist ones. But those MAGA, fascists.
I respect conservative Republicans. I don't respect these MAGA Republicans. The MAGA Republicans don't just threaten our personal rights and economic security. They're a threat to our very democracy. They refuse to accept the will of the people. MAGA Republicans don't have a clue about the power of women. Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans have made their choice to go backwards, full of anger, violence, hate, and division. But we've chosen a different path. Forward.
Donald Trump got more votes than any incumbent president in the history of this country. All of them are fascists, according to Joe Biden. Whoever's writing this stuff for him, because he's not all there, has a contempt for what they're calling ultra MAGA, ultimate MAGA, whatever they're calling it.
On the semi-fascism comment, is this something we're going to hear more of, that phrase? Is it something the president's going to kind of embrace? Or is there any sense that it was a little impromptu and it's going to turn into a kind of basket of deplorables thing that he regrets and tries to be quiet about?
Look, I was very clear when laying out and defining what MAGA Republicans have done, and you look at the definition of fascism and you think about what they're doing in attacking our democracy, what they're doing in taking away our freedoms, wanting to take away our rights, our voting rights. I mean, that is what that is. It is very clear, and that's why he made that powerful speech.
They hate 70 to 75 million people. He literally called us fascists. But in his inauguration speech, he talked about how he was going to bring the country back together. The adults are back in the room.
My whole soul is in this, bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause.
I'm going to unify the country. I'm going to bring everyone together. Fast forward, his policies are destructive to the United States, to the economy, to the lower class people in the country. The people barely getting by, the middle class definitely are being destroyed by his policies. The economy's crap. The dollar value is crap. So now he has to find somebody to point fingers at. And first he started saying that he would be excited to run against Donald Trump. That would make Donald Trump a political foe by any stretch of the imagination. So they raided his house. Several people were essentially either banned off social media, not talked about in the media, or shadow banned and had their distribution reduced if they spoke about the things that he champions. Journalists have been spied on. This goes back to the Obama administration. The IRS has targeted conservatives. Fast forward to now, journalists are being raided, not just spied on, but raided. New York Post has been silenced. A full story about his son was silenced. The raid on the journalist was O'Keefe. He had his home raided over a diary, Biden's daughter's diary. And it said some things about her taking showers with him when she was a child. So of course we can't have that out. Let's raid the home and take it. We'll pull up to the house with weapons like they did Donald Trump's home, Mar-a-Lago. Now they didn't pull out their guns at least, but they were definitely armed. 30 FBI agents pulled up to this house, raided. Still haven't heard what the reason is or the justification. They released the affidavits and it was all blacked out. They redacted everything, which we knew was going to be the case. Then you have guys who were in Trump's administration, during Trump's administration, being raided, being arrested. People on their way to airplanes to fly somewhere, getting stopped on the tarmac, getting arrested, taken out in cuffs. They're making a spectacle. Remember, we're the fascists. They're making a spectacle of anyone who disagrees with them or represents or follows or works for Donald Trump. They're trying to, to me, it's pretty clear that it's intimidation. But they're also trying to say, hey, this speech, these behaviors will not be tolerated. Signed, federal government. So then you have the federal government, and I'll say how this happened. The federal government shuts down a guy named Alex Berenson for simply talking about the negative side of vaccines and speaking on the topic of COVID, period.
Twitter employees talking to each other about a meeting that they had in April of 2021 before Twitter had ever done anything to me, where they said that the White House said, why is this guy still allowed to tweet? And at that time, they were saying to each other, these Twitter employees, we think he's fine. We don't think he's doing anything wrong. Well, you fast forward to July of 2021, just over a year ago, and Joe Biden says anybody who debates the vaccines, if social media platforms allow that, they are quote unquote killing people. And then less or barely a month after that, 4 hours after that, I should say, Twitter puts a strike against me. They begin the process of deplatforming me. 6 weeks later, they deplatform me. So my position, and I'm going to sue, I've said I'm going to sue the White House, and I'm going to sue a guy named Andy Slavitt, who's named in these documents, who was working at the White House at the time. My position is that there are people inside the Biden administration who violated my rights as an American citizen, violated my First Amendment rights.
Freedom of speech means that the government can't shut your ability to speak down. Now, there are restrictions. We all know what those restrictions are. Private companies can shut down anyone's speech. You don't have a freedom of speech when you're going up against company policy. You just don't. They can say, hey, we're not going to take a stance on any of these political issues. You can do so, but you can't be representing my company in any way. Why? Because I pay you, and I may not agree with you. So, to not have any of these kinds of disagreements, what we're going to do is we're going to not do political speech over here at my place of business. Perfectly fine. As a private business owner. Cool. Then you had the New York Post story about Hunter Biden's laptop get censored. Twitter shut it down. Facebook censored it.
So you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. I mean, basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. There was we thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have, if something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third-party fact-checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
it got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely...
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful. But I mean, but basically, a lot of people were still able to share it. We got a lot of complaints that was the case. Obviously this is a hyper political issue. So depending on what side of the political spectrum, you either think we didn't censor it enough or censored it way too much. But we weren't sort of as black and white about it as Twitter. We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's like very professional law enforcement, if they come to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, then I want to take that seriously.
Did they specifically say you need to be on guard about that story?
No, I don't remember if it was that specifically, but it basically fit the pattern.
Our federal government, this Biden administration, they're weaponizing their agencies. The Department of Justice is sicking FBI agents on everyday citizens. They sick their agents on a former president of the United States. The IRS was targeting Christian and conservative organizations and conservative PACs and conservative journalists, or even journalists who weren't conservative but weren't towing the leftist or Democrat line. Why? Because Trump is a dictator. If Trump is a dictator with white privilege, how are they able to attack everyone he knows and go into his home, steal passports, and raid him? That doesn't sound like a dictator. That sounds like the person doing all that is the dictator. Everything they call somebody or accuse somebody of doing is a projection. It's what they do.
In 1943, the following directive was issued from party headquarters to all communists in the United States. It read, "When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable build-ups as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact in the public mind."
They're the ones doing this. So when Zuckerberg said that, it's like, the government came to you and told you to block a story, to withhold information, and they specifically said because it would impact the election. Well, banning the story or blocking the story impacted the election. That was the point. And then you have the left screaming, oh, this is a conspiracy theory. This is a conspiracy theory. Bill Maher spoke on this and said, well, wait a minute. We're okay with shutting it down as long as Trump doesn't get in office?
He's saying it's okay to have a conspiracy to get rid of somebody as bad as Trump. It's a little bit of a thorny question because once you go down this road, this is sort of where we are in this country. The other side is so evil, anything is justified in preventing them from taking office. Is it?
No. You know what's not justified? Using armed violence to try to kill people in the Capitol. That's not justified.
Answer this question. Huh? Answer this question.
What is
was
the
it
question?
Appropriate? The question is,
Was
it
the press?
appropriate to bury the Hunter Biden?
You're talking about the press doing that?
He's saying that's what they did, and that is what they did. They buried the Hunter Biden story before the election because they were like, we can't risk having the election thrown to Trump. We'll tell them after the election.
And we know for a fact that that's what they did?
Of course. You don't follow this.
Saying you know for a fact that that's what they did. I don't know what they did.
I know, because you only watch MSNBC.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Well, then you would know about this.
I do know about that.
Well, you're acting like you know.
I do know about that, and I do watch Fox. But the point is, we're going to prove now that the press tried to.
They're admitting it.
The press is admitting it.
Yes, that's not even an issue anymore. They're saying, yes, we basically did this because we didn't want this to throw the election. Yes?
I don't know that they've all said this, and I believe strongly
well, the New York
in the
Times
First
definitely
Amendment.
did.
My dad was a reporter. I believe in it. And I think you have to make sure that you're treating people fairly. But I think Rob's point here is that we are dealing with a man who used to be the president right now who literally tried to lead an armed insurrection.
They're supposed to be the skeptics. They're supposed to be verifying everything the government says. They're supposed to be breaking stories. They're supposed to be getting access to classified information and releasing it for the public to see the truth. They're not supposed to be hiding things for him and suppressing stories for him. That's where we are right now in 2022. The media is acting as the press secretary for the Biden administration, while the Biden administration just keeps doing illegal things. You know what's funny is I talked about that taint thing, and I knew about that because I listened to an attorney talk about it. The taint team that was supposed to go in before you raid someone's home or even subpoena the information, and then they determine what's privileged and what's not. The Biden administration didn't do that. So if this goes to court, if the raid and all that goes to court, it's going to be thrown out because they tainted their own operation by not having a taint team which is designed to stop yourself from tainting your own investigation. And then they went right ahead and did it. Now they're saying, well, we have one. They're looking at the stuff now. Yeah, after you took it. So we're just supposed to take your word that you didn't go through stuff and have access to stuff and already do stuff. Well, the reason why that word is no good because you took passports and you went into his wife's closet, her linen closet. So we're supposed to assume, hey, yes, they went in, took all the boxes, but we didn't look at anything yet. We're waiting for our after the fact taint team to go through it to make sure we don't taint or botch this operation. It's too late. But it's funny that they're using a taint team after the fact. And there was all this urgency about these documents that have been there for a year and a half. So where'd the sudden urgency come from? It's so ridiculous. But I'm more worried about the fact that the media is being allowed to do this. The good thing is they're slowly falling off. Don Lemon's next. Stelter just got fired. Talked about how highly rated his show was, which is a lie. And he's gone, thank God. Probably the most pompous personality on TV. I watched him lie about so many people. When he started lying about Joe Rogan and with this smirk, I'm just glad he's gone. But anyway, I'm just curious as to when the American people are going to look up and say, well, wait a minute, you just called. Now, you guys may not like the MAGA movement. You may not like Donald Trump. You may not like his supporters. But in your family, there are people that this man called a fascist. Are you okay with that? Are you good with that? Your son, your brother, your sister, some people, your spouse disagrees with you on politics. Does that make them a fascist? Are they trying to shut the other side down? Or is it the people who are actually raiding and shutting down their political opposition? I think they're the ones who are acting like fascists. I think it's very ironic that the President of the United States called 70 to 75 million people, American citizens, fascists for disagreeing with him. But the border, anyone can come in. Do you know who they are? No. Do you know where they're coming from? Fascist countries. Oh, okay. So I'm gonna make a prediction. It's a pretty obvious prediction, but I still don't think Biden's gonna finish out his term. I think that 2022 is gonna be an absolute slaughter, and the left is gonna lose both chambers. I think that 2024 is gonna be a pretty easily won election for the right. And I think if Donald Trump runs, he's going to win. But I don't think it matters if it's him or DeSantis, they're going to win. And the reason is the media, late night talk shows, Hollywood, and the left, politicians, including their leader Joe Biden, have an outright open disdain for me and people like me. So if you had anything contrarian to say about the jab, we'll call it that, or the time frame where the jab was a big deal, if you had anything to say about that, you're public enemy number one. If you don't agree that there was an insurrection, you're public enemy number one. The things that they put up top of the list as being priorities are just not what the American people see as priorities. How do I know? There was a Gallup poll on what American people think are the priorities, and the insurrection wasn't on the list. It's the economy, it's inflation, it has nothing to do with climate change. Like, all the stuff that they focus on they're just backwards. They're backwards. And they're trying to force other people to care about these things. And when we don't, you're an enemy. You're evil, or you hate the planet. You want us all to die. And you hate your kids and their kids and their kids' kids. Because you're insensitive. And I'm sure they'll figure out a way to call you a transphobe or alphabet phobe within that. It's going to be bad. But then when violence starts happening, it won't be like January 6th. It'll be real violence, and there will be really people killed, just like in 2020. They'll call it peaceful protests. People, they're going to do what they're going to do.